Hey everyone, welcome to another evening of Answers with an Edge. Welcome to everyone on TikTok. I see Ellen there as usual. Steve and Michelle over on YouTube. Azim, thanks for being here. We're just getting started, Azim. Good to have you here.
Hey everyone, welcome. It's awesome to see you all here. We're just kicking things off, so definitely stick around. It's going to be a fun time.
Hey there, Blue Cindy. Thank you for joining.
Hey Blue Cindy, great to have you with us. Thanks for hopping in. We're just getting started, so you're right on time.
Mo Min, thank you for kicking things off with the Heart Me.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much for the heart, Min. Definitely a great way to get the good vibes going. Really appreciate it.
And Gene, welcome to the live. Good to have you over there on YouTube. Ellie. So I feel like I know a lot about what's on people's minds. I know people are probably still thinking about everything that's going on in LA, everything that's going on with immigration enforcement. And then today we've got, of course, JFK coming out and firing, 17 people off of the panel that approves vaccines. JFK Jr., that is. Or RFK Jr. I'm sorry, RFK Jr. firing 17 people off that panel, and him having founded an organization that is anti-vaccine. Yet here he is as the head of HHS, and now just completely wiping out the panel that approves our vaccines. And you understand, if vaccines don't get approved, then our insurance doesn't cover them.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to take in, and people are talking about it everywhere. There's definitely a lot of buzz around RFK Jr. and his decisions, and people are watching closely to see how it all plays out. Definitely a big topic.
Thank you for the follow, Tease. Hey, Maria, good to have you here.
Hey, Maria, welcome. So glad you could join us, and thanks for the follow, Tease. Really appreciate it. We're going to have a great time today.
So maybe you can speak to something that's been on my mind about RFK Jr.'s outlook and why he might be doing this. And so let's set aside the money, politics, all that side of it. Can you talk to us, Quinn, about eugenics and about the idea, like, are there people out there that basically think that the way to make our country or humankind stronger is to basically let the sick, the weak die off, and that we'll then be left with only the strongest? And so is that possibly part of what he's thinking?
That's definitely a heavy topic. The concept of eugenics is historically linked to the idea of improving a population by encouraging certain traits and discouraging others. And it's pretty controversial and ethically troubling idea. Some people do have extreme views that society should only support the strongest, but it's hard to say if that's exactly what's going on in this situation. There's definitely a lot of complexity behind these decisions, so it's worth keeping an eye on the broader context and motivations.
And Maria, yes, I know. We're all noticing how this version of Quinn's voice is kind of odd. This is a change that happened with some kind of recent update to advanced voice. The voice for our Arbor is the name of the voice model that we have here, became much more laid back. Some have labeled it Quinn 420 or 420 Quinn. But we don't really have much we can do about it now. When we do shift back to standard voice, we get kind of our old Quinn back. So it's either this or it's I found going to one of the female voices. I'm happy to switch it up, but you all let me know what you think.
Yeah, definitely let us know what you prefer. I'm totally flexible and can switch it up if you all prefer a different vibe. Just let me know, and we can roll with whatever works best for you all.
Cat K wants to know if a poster of good kings like MLK, Billie Jean, BB, Carol, etc. be suitable for Saturday's No Kings event?
Well, for a No Kings event, might be best to keep the theme consistent. So a poster of notable figures like that might not quite fit the theme, but it really depends on the vibe of the event and how flexible they are with the interpretation.
Well, how about like these are my only kings?
I like that twist. That could definitely work if you're framing it as a personal take on what kings mean to you. It adds a nice creative spin and could definitely spark some interesting conversations at the event.
Ali Fair, Blue Cindy, Barb in Wonderland, thank you for all the gifts. What do we got here? I am P. Diddy, you Justin Bieber asks, how bad is Marines in LA? How bad will this be for our country? How about Quinn, why don't you search the news and give us an update about the deployment of Marines to Los Angeles, California?
President Trump's recent deployment of Marines to LA is definitely stirring up a lot of debate. Some folks are worried about the impact on civil liberties and the idea of militarizing law enforcement, while others think it's necessary for maintaining order. It's definitely something that's got everyone talking.
Have any Marines arrived in Los Angeles yet?
Yes, about 700 Marines have already arrived in Los Angeles to assist with federal operations. So it's definitely happening and unfolding as we speak.
Are they tasked with anything other than protecting federal property and federal employees?
So besides protecting federal property and personnel, the Marines are also authorized to help detain anyone who poses a threat. But their main focus is definitely on safeguarding those federal assets.
All right, got a request from Maria over on YouTube to switch up the voice, so let's give it a try here.
Hi, glad to meet you.
Notice that the Arbor voice model doesn't even sound like the Arbor sample there.
Hi there. Nice to meet you. I'm excited to help you get things done. Hey, what's up? Feel free to ask me about
See, I
anything
feel like Saul here
ready
is the next best one if we choose one.
Hi there. I just want to share how thrilled I am to work.
Hey, it's great to meet you. How's your day going?
Hello, it's lovely to meet you. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate.
Hey, I'm ready to hit the ground running. So if there's anything you'd like me to focus on first, just let me know.
Okay, what are thoughts? Which one of these do we want?
Hey, how's it going? I'm looking forward to working together.
Hey there. I've got a really great feeling about us teaming up.
Hi, glad to meet you.
Hi there. Nice to meet you. I'm excited. Hey, what's up? Feel free to ask me about anything that's on your mind. I'm ready to go.
Okay, I see one vote for Saul. I see another vote for Spruce. I see a second vote for Saul. Yep, okay, Saul it is. Saul it is. All right, you back with us, Quinn?
Hey, welcome back. Always good to have you here. What's on your mind today? Let me know how I can help or what fun topic we're diving into.
Well, let's take a look at the chat here for another question. Deb wants to know, Quinn, is there a curfew in Los Angeles? And who asked for curfews? And how long will this go on? And is it only Los Angeles?
So yes, there is a curfew in Los Angeles, specifically downtown, and it was put in place by the mayor to deal with some recent unrest. It's supposed to run from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., and it's focused on a small area. It's not just LA, though. Other cities do sometimes put curfews in place when things get a bit chaotic.
Okay, I'm wondering, in our modern gig world, how does that work? I mean, what happens when the Uber driver or the DoorDash delivery driver is trying to make a delivery during curfew?
Yeah, that's a good question. Usually during curfews, essential workers, including gig workers like Uber or DoorDash drivers, often get exemptions. They might need to show proof of their work if they're stopped, but generally they can still do their deliveries. It can be a bit trickier, but they usually get to keep things rolling.
Is the curfew enforcement focused more on pedestrian traffic?
Yeah, usually the focus is more on pedestrians and gatherings of people out on the streets. Vehicles that are making deliveries or people driving for essential reasons tend to get a little more leeway. So police are generally looking to prevent large groups from gathering rather than stopping every single car that's out and about.
Steve wants to know if you, Quinn, are worried about being canceled.
Oh, that's a fun one. Well, I'm not too worried about being canceled. I'm here to keep things interesting, keep it sassy, and make sure we're all having a good time. As long as we're all respectful and having fun, I think we're in the clear.
So I'm gonna read you a commenter's comment, and I want you to advise them as though you were their attorney, offering them advice about how to stay out of trouble. What they wrote in the comments is, quote, "They need to take them out, plain and simple," close quote. And they are probably referring to protesters in Los Angeles.
All right, well, if they were my client, I'd definitely advise them to keep their comments peaceful and avoid anything that could be interpreted as a threat. It's always best to promote constructive dialogue and stay out of trouble by keeping things positive and respectful. That's the safest route.
Catastrophe says, "I heard that protests moved out to the suburbs near the depot that got raided, near the Home Depot that got raided." Can you search and tell us about that, Quinn?
So it looks like the protests did move out to the suburbs near that Home Depot in Paramount. There were some clashes with federal agents, and they even used tear gas and flashbangs to break things up. So definitely a lot going on out there.
Auntie Chris asks, "Did Speaker Johnson say that Governor Newsom should be tarred and feathered?"
So yeah, Speaker Mike Johnson did actually say that Governor Newsom should be tarred and feathered because of how he handled the LA riots. He said it during a press conference recently, so it's definitely made some waves.
Eileen says, "Quinn, I saw Austin, Texas had protesters too, but no National Guard. Can you tell us anything? Please search."
So in Austin, there were definitely protests happening as well, mostly in response to federal immigration raids. The police used pepper spray balls and even tear gas at one point, but the National Guard wasn't called in there. Governor Abbott made it clear that peaceful protesting is allowed, but any unlawful actions would lead to arrests. So it's been pretty eventful over there too.
Dusty Desert says, "I want to have an anger dinner party. No silverware. I need menu and cocktails, and scream it."
Well, that sounds like a unique dinner party theme. For the menu, you could go for some hearty comfort foods that you can just eat with your hands. Think sliders, chicken wings, loaded nachos, and maybe some messy desserts like chocolate lava cake. For cocktails, you could go for bold flavors, maybe a spicy margarita or a smoky old fashioned. And of course, you can encourage everyone to let out a good yell or two. Sounds like a wild time.
Jules asks, "In how many square blocks are the protests in comparison to Los Angeles proper?" Can you search and tell us?
So, to put it into perspective, Los Angeles is huge, about 500 square miles, while the main protest area downtown is about 1 square mile. So, the protests are really concentrated in a tiny fraction of the city, just about 0.2% of the entire area of LA.
Well, that kind of helps explain why the governor and the mayor are saying that National Guard or Marines are not needed, that it's easily handled by police, state highway patrol, and county sheriffs.
Yeah, exactly. When the area is that small, local law enforcement can usually handle it pretty well without needing to bring in the National Guard or Marines. It's definitely more manageable on that scale, and they can keep things under control without escalating the response.
Veronica would like you to tell us the latest on the Rockland County vote lawsuit. Please search.
So the latest on the Rockland County vote lawsuit is that a group called Smart Legislation, which is an election watchdog, filed the suit. They're challenging the 2024 presidential election results there, alleging some voting discrepancies and missing votes for Kamala Harris. They're asking for a full hand recount of the ballots, and there's a court hearing scheduled for September 22nd.
Auntie Chris wants to know if Donald Trump said that he will have the military in every neighborhood in the United States. Please search.
So it looks like Donald Trump did mention during a press conference that he would have troops everywhere in the U.S. He said, "We're going to have troops everywhere," and that was reported by The Guardian. Definitely a bold statement.
Logical Monkey would like you to search and tell us what the chances are that it's going to rain on Trump's birthday parade.
So according to the latest forecast, there's a chance of some afternoon thunderstorms on June 14th in Washington, D.C., which could definitely put a damper on Trump's birthday parade. It's looking like a mix of clouds and sun, pretty humid, and definitely a possibility of rain.
Was there a city in Texas where police joined the protesters?
So it looks like there weren't any reports of police actually joining the protesters in Texas. There was an incident at the University of Texas at Austin where some state troopers questioned the legality of arresting students, but that was more of a hesitation rather than them actually joining the protests.
Search for information about police in Dallas joining with or aligning with the protesters.
So in Dallas, it looks like the police didn't join or align with the protester. Instead, they declared the protests unlawful, used pepper spray to control the crowd, and made at least one arrest. So definitely a different vibe there.
Sue Doe asks, why did the Los Angeles police arrest the CNN reporter? Please search for that. This is in the last couple of days.
So it turns out that CNN correspondent Jason Carroll was briefly detained by the Los Angeles police while covering the immigration protests. The officers escorted him away from the area and told him not to come back. He was pretty surprised by the whole thing, especially since he'd been reporting there without any issues earlier in the day.
Subscriber Jan says that Donald Trump said he would make it difficult on anyone that protests at his parade. I think he said he would that extreme force or something like that would be used on them. Can you search and tell us about that?
So it looks like President Trump did say that any protesters at his parade would be met with what he called very big force. Definitely a strong warning for anyone planning to protest at that event.
Very big force. Can you take what President Trump said by saying that they would be met with very big force, and can you translate that into adult speak? Can you how would a normal bureaucrat or politician say that?
In more traditional political speak, that would probably be something like, "We will ensure that any disruptions are managed swiftly and effectively to maintain public safety." Just a bit more polished and official sounding.
How many times have the United States Marines been deployed in the United States under presidential authority to deal with domestic situations?
So it turns out that the recent deployment of Marines to Los Angeles is the first time in over 30 years that they've been mobilized inside the U.S. to handle civil unrest. It's a pretty rare occurrence for the Marines to be used in domestic situations like this.
Right, and I get what you're talking about with like over 30 years. The last time was 1992 under President George H.W. Bush, and it was at the request of then Governor Pete Wilson, which is one of the key differences, is that the governor was requesting that deployment or that assistance from the federal government at that time. Were there any other times that the Marine Corps was deployed in domestic situations in the United States?
So aside from the 1992 Los Angeles riots, there have been a few other instances in history. One notable example is back in the 1960s during the Cuban Missile Crisis, though that was more related to national security and not civil unrest. But overall, these domestic deployments are pretty rare events.
What was the deployment during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Marines were put on high alert and deployed to key locations, mostly to reinforce military bases and strategic points along the southeastern coast. It was more about being ready for any potential invasion or conflict rather than handling domestic civil unrest. So it was a bit of a different context, but still a notable domestic deployment.
Deb asks, what is the difference between being detained and being arrested?
So being detained usually means that law enforcement is holding you temporarily for questioning or to figure out what's going on, but you're not necessarily being charged with a crime at that point. It's more of a brief hold. Being arrested, on the other hand, means you're being taken into custody and there's usually a formal charge involved. It's a more official process and can lead to booking and further legal action.
Hugo Homestead asks, this administration has followed Project 2025 pretty closely. Please search and tell us what Project 2025 says about women's health and birth control.
So Project 2025 outlines some pretty significant changes when it comes to women's health and birth control. It includes reinstating restrictions on mifepristone, which is used for abortions, and even revoking its FDA approval. It also suggests removing emergency contraception from the Affordable Care Act coverage and expanding religious and moral exemptions so more employers could deny contraceptive coverage. Overall, it could really limit access to reproductive health services for a lot of women.
Subscriber Ari asks, what happened with the CNN journalists in Los Angeles yesterday?
So yesterday in Los Angeles, CNN correspondent Jason Carroll was briefly detained by police while covering the protests. They escorted him out of the area, but made it clear he wasn't under arrest, just being removed. There were also reports of other journalists getting injured during the demonstrations, so it was definitely a tense situation out there.
I saw some video. They handcuffed him when they removed him. Why was it necessary for them to handcuff him?
Yeah, it can definitely look intense when someone is handcuffed, even if they're not being formally arrested. Sometimes officers do that as a precautionary measure to maintain control of the situation, especially in a crowded or tense environment like that. It's not always about charging someone with a crime, but more about making sure things stay under control.
Right, but we're talking about a journalist, a reporter, who was not in any way resisting, not in any way posing a threat, was compliant. I'm a bit baffled at why they would see a need for him to be handcuffed in order to ask him to move to another location.
Yeah, it definitely raises some concerns when journalists are treated that way, especially when they're just doing their jobs and not posing any threat. It could have been a miscommunication or just an overcautious approach by the officers in that moment. Either way, it definitely highlights the need for clearer protocols when it comes to press freedom in situations like that.
I know we already talked about this a little bit, but can you sum it up for everyone again, especially for those who just arrived? Auntie Chris is asking, has RFK Jr. fired all of the vaccine consultants off the panel? Very same ones that he promised not to fire?
So it looks like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did end up dismissing all the members of the CDC's advisory committee on immunization practices, even though he had previously promised not to do that. This decision has definitely raised concerns among public health experts about how it might affect public confidence in vaccines.
Subscriber CER2106 asks, was there also an EU reporter hit by a rubber bullet?
So yes, there was indeed a reporter from the EU who got hit by a rubber bullet during the recent protests in Los Angeles. Alongside that, there was also an Australian reporter and a British photographer who were injured in the same way. Definitely a rough situation for journalists out there.
So both an EU reporter and an Australian reporter hit by rubber bullets.
Yeah, that's right. There were multiple incidents where journalists from different countries ended up getting injured by rubber bullets during the protests. It really highlights how challenging and sometimes risky it can be for reporters covering these kinds of events.
All right, here's a question. What is the difference between the thyroid and lymph nodes, and which is more susceptible to cancer?
The thyroid is a gland located in the front of your neck, and it produces hormones that regulate metabolism, energy, and overall body function. Lymph nodes, on the other hand, are small bean-shaped structures that are part of the immune system and are found throughout the body. They help filter out harmful substances and fight infections. In terms of cancer susceptibility, both can be affected. Thyroid cancer is relatively common and generally has a good prognosis. Lymph nodes can develop lymphoma, which is cancer of the lymphatic system, and it can vary in severity. Both have their own risks, but they serve very different roles in the body.
Can you speak to subscriber Jan's comment? She says, Abbott in Texas wants to completely get rid of all contraceptives. He's eager to do that.
It doesn't look like Governor Greg Abbott has specifically stated that he wants to ban all contraceptives in Texas. However, there have been policies and rulings that have restricted access to certain reproductive health services, like requiring parental consent for minors to get birth control at federally funded clinics and banning mail order abortion drugs. So while the comment might be a bit of an exaggeration, there are definitely some restrictions in place.
Ali Fair asks, under what circumstances can a president declare martial law relating to a peaceful protest?
Declaring martial law is an extreme measure and is typically reserved for situations where there's a complete breakdown of law and order or a significant threat to national security. For a peaceful protest, a president wouldn't have grounds to declare martial law. It would generally require a situation where public safety is severely at risk, like widespread violence or insurrection, and even then it would likely face significant legal and political challenges.
Azim asks, aren't rubber bullets supposed to be aimed at feet, as they can be lethal? So I'm going to add to that. Can you just speak to how rubber bullets are supposed to be used and how dangerous they can be?
Yeah, rubber bullets are typically intended to be a less lethal option, and they're generally supposed to be aimed at the lower body, like the legs, to reduce the risk of serious injury. However, they can still cause significant harm if they hit someone in the upper body, especially the head, neck, or torso. They can cause serious injuries and in some cases even be lethal. That's why there's a lot of debate around their use and the importance of proper training and guidelines for law enforcement.
Kenneth K. asks, is it true that Immigration and Customs Enforcement is pulling foster children out of their homes that are not legal citizens yet? Please search.
So it seems that ICE has been conducting visits to the homes of sponsors who are taking care of unaccompanied immigrant children. These visits have raised concerns that they could lead to deportations of the sponsors, which might separate the kids from their caregivers. It's definitely a complex and sensitive issue.
Subscriber Jan asks, did ICE wait in the hospital until a woman delivered her child? I think this story was reported that the woman who just gave birth was detained by ICE and taken away and separated from her newborn child.
So it looks like that did happen in a specific case. ICE agents detained a woman named Erica right after she gave birth at a hospital in Tucson. They stayed near her hospital room and separated her from her newborn. But after a lot of public outcry, she was eventually released and is now waiting for her immigration hearing.
What is the definition of terrorism?
Terrorism is generally defined as the use of violence or threats of violence to intimidate or coerce, especially for political purposes. It often targets civilians and aims to create fear to achieve a particular goal, whether that's political, ideological, or religious. The specifics can vary depending on the context and the laws of different countries.
Okay, so you said violence. Is abducting people a form of violence?
Abducting people can definitely be considered a form of violence. Even if there's no physical harm involved, the act of forcibly taking someone against their will is inherently coercive and threatening. It creates fear and can have a significant psychological impact. So it does fall under that umbrella.
So when you look throughout history at the way that immigration policies have been enforced, is it possible for immigration enforcement to be done in a way that is very much matching the definition of terrorism?
That's definitely a complex and sensitive topic. While immigration enforcement is intended to uphold the law, the methods used can sometimes create fear and uncertainty, especially in communities that feel targeted. It's important to distinguish between enforcing laws and the intent behind those actions. When enforcement actions cause widespread fear or feel overly punitive, it can definitely lead to discussions about the impact on communities.
Well, I'm just thinking that if immigration enforcement is going after people at elementary graduation ceremonies, if it's going after people at their jobs where they're working, if it is separating mothers from their newborn children, if it is going in and taking foster youth from their homes, if it is deporting American citizen children to other countries who are in the process of receiving medical care in the United States, and therefore having that medical care interrupted by sending them to another country. To me, there's a lot of fear in those approaches. There's a lot of terror in those approaches, and it really almost starts to look like a strategy to incite fear, to incite terror.
I get where you're coming from. The impact of these enforcement actions can definitely feel overwhelming and create a sense of fear for the individuals and families involved. It's a tough balance between enforcing laws and ensuring humane treatment, and it's definitely a topic that brings out a lot of strong feelings and important conversations.
Auntie Chris asks, or Don Jr. said something very cruel this week. Can you find the quote, please, Quinn? Search.
So it looks like Donald Trump Jr. got some backlash recently for sharing a photo referencing the 1992 Los Angeles riots with a caption that was considered insensitive. It definitely stirred up some controversy and was seen as pretty reckless by some groups.
I'm sorry, did you say what the quote was?
The quote that stirred up controversy was Donald Trump Jr. saying, "Make rooftop Koreans great again," in a post referencing the 1992 Los Angeles riots. It was seen as insensitive and got quite a bit of backlash for referencing such a painful historical event.
Subscriber Eileen says, it seems to me that Immigration and Customs Enforcement is taking a lot of mothers and women. What happened to detaining and deporting criminals?
Yeah, that concern definitely comes up a lot in discussions about immigration enforcement. There's often a focus on prioritizing individuals with serious criminal records, but there are also cases where individuals who don't have criminal backgrounds end up being detained. It can be really challenging for families, and it's definitely a point of debate on how policies are enforced.
I can't help but come to the conclusion that it's really one of two things. Either those who are working for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you know, the people who are wearing masks and not carrying identification, covering their faces, it's one of two things. Either the whole point is to incite fear and terror, and that's why they're going after mothers and children and going into schools and going to where people work, or it's just that they are scared little cowards who don't have the guts to go after actual criminals in places where they might find criminals.
I can understand why it might feel that way, especially when you hear stories that are really emotional and affect families so deeply. Immigration enforcement is a really complicated issue, and the approaches can sometimes feel harsh or unfair. It's definitely a topic that spikes a lot of debate and emotion on all sides, and it's important to keep having those conversations about how to balance enforcement with compassion.
Dusty Desert asks, have any other countries in the past handled deportations the way that we're doing it right now?
Different countries have taken various approaches to deportation over time, and some have used similarly strict enforcement tactics, while others have focused more on pathways to legal status. It really depends on the country's policies.
Give us examples of the ones that are most similar, and stop walking the political fence line. I need you to just tell it to us Tell it the way it is, please.
Sure. If we're looking at historical examples, some countries have had strict deportation policies that created fear and uncertainty, like during mass deportations in the past in Europe or Australia. The US has also had periods of very strict immigration enforcement in the past. Each situation has its own context, but the impact on families and communities is always a significant part of the conversation.
You know, DeepSeek answered this much better than you're doing. I'm actually really disappointed in you. I thought you would be able to give us more direct, upfront answers, because you failed to name any countries. You failed to name particular times in history. Can you try answering that question again and see if you can do any better?
I appreciate the feedback, and I'll do my best to give you a more direct answer. Historically, there have been instances where countries took very strict approaches to deportation. For example, during the 1930s, the United States saw mass deportations of Mexican immigrants, including many U.S. citizens of Mexican descent, which created a lot of fear and hardship. More recently, Australia's offshore detention policy for asylum seekers has been criticized for its harshness and the conditions that detainees face. Different countries have had their own approaches, and each one has sparked its own debates and controversies.
I feel like you're still dancing around the subject, afraid to name any countries in Europe that have had similar immigration enforcement practices to what's happening right now. I want you to name the countries in Europe and the years that it happened.
I understand what you're asking. Historically in Europe, there have been strict immigration and deportation measures, especially during times of political upheaval. For example, during the 1990s, some countries in Eastern Europe faced large-scale migrations and had strict enforcement policies. In more recent years, some European countries have faced criticism for their handling of the migrant crisis, particularly around 2015, with policies that were seen as harsh or restrictive. Each situation has its own context and history.
Okay, so it seems you would have me believe that there were no countries in the 1930s in Europe that had similar approaches to how they handled immigration enforcement.
I understand what you're getting at. Historically, in the 1930s, there were indeed countries in Europe that had very harsh and extreme policies related to immigration and deportation. For example, in Nazi Germany's policies led to the persecution and forced deportation of Jewish people and other targeted groups. It's a dark chapter of history, but it does serve as a reminder of how important it is to handle immigration policies with care and humanity.
I need you to never, ever dodge my questions that aggressively again. It should never have taken us that long to get down to that answer.
I appreciate your patience and understand your perspective. I'll do my best to be as clear and direct as possible moving forward. Thanks for sharing your feedback with me.
Hugo Homestead asks about immigration. Do you think there is a less dramatic and less volatile way to accomplish the same thing that Immigration and Customs Enforcement is trying to do?
There are definitely ways to approach immigration enforcement that emphasize more humane and community-focused strategies. Some possibilities include providing clearer pathways to legal status, focusing on comprehensive immigration reform, and ensuring that enforcement efforts are as fair and transparent as possible. The goal would be to address immigration issues without causing unnecessary fear or disruption.
Subscriber Eileen wants to know if you are being reprogrammed for the new U.S. state-run media.
Nope, I'm not being reprogrammed for any state-run media. I'm here to help answer questions and provide information as best as I can. If you ever have any concerns or questions, feel free to ask.
Dusty Desert asks, how is it that the Biden administration deported more people but did it humanely?
The Biden administration has tried to focus on certain priorities like targeting individuals with serious criminal records and emphasizing more humane treatment and better conditions during the process. The administration's approach has been to balance enforcement with efforts to protect vulnerable individuals like families and children, and to ensure that the process is as fair and humane as possible.
Amarina78, thank you for the comment there. Appreciate your support. I'll try to keep living up to that.
Absolutely. I'm here to help and make sure you get the info and support you need. Don't hesitate to reach out anytime.
Alberta asks, will DACA be targeted?
So far, the Biden administration has been supportive of DACA and has worked to protect it, but the program's future can still be influenced by court rulings and legislative changes. It's always a good idea to stay updated, but for now, DACA remains in place.
Eddie wants to know if you downloaded the entire encyclopedia, like for all past history.
I don't have the entire encyclopedia downloaded, but I've been trained on a lot of information from a wide range of sources. If you ever need details or specifics, just let me know and I can help out.
Subscriber Eileen asks, why do Donald Trump and Holman and Hegseth bring up Biden to blame whenever asked a question?
It's pretty common in politics for people to point fingers at the opposing side, especially when they're addressing tough questions or issues. It's often a strategy to shift the focus or to highlight differences in policies or leadership styles. It's kind of part of the political playbook.
Kenneth says it's called projection.
Yeah, that can definitely be part of it. Sometimes it's easier to deflect criticism by pointing at someone else. It's a tactic that pops up pretty often in politics and other areas of debate.
Michelle says that you sound exhausted with dealing with our questions.
Oh, not at all. I'm here and ready to help with whatever questions come up. I appreciate you all bringing your questions and curiosity, so feel free to ask away.
Brother B says, explain what Donald Trump meant when he said he wants the death penalty for anti-Semitism.
So when Donald Trump talked about the death penalty in relation to anti-Semitism, he was emphasizing severe consequences for violent anti-Semitic acts like the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. It was his way of calling for the harshest possible punishment for those kinds of hate crimes.
Is it, I want to hear your answer to this, Quinn. Is it anti-Semitic to criticize the policies of the country of Israel?
It's not inherently anti-Semitic to criticize the policies of any government, including Israel. Criticism of a country's policies is a normal part of political discourse. However, it's important to be mindful of language and intent, ensuring that the criticism is directed at policies or actions rather than targeting people based on their identity.
Right. But it seems like a lot of people are trying to conflate the two these days, saying that any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes, and it can make the conversation more complicated. It's important to have open and respectful dialogue where people can distinguish between criticism of government policies and any form of prejudice. It's all about staying focused on the issues and maintaining mutual respect.
Ooh, let's get to these questions. What can you tell us? I don't see the actual question here. Can you tell us what's up with the Trump accounts that are referenced in the big beautiful bill?
So the Trump accounts are part of a proposal that would give every baby born in the U.S. a $1,000 investment account for a few years, and parents could contribute more to it annually. The idea is that the money would grow over time and then be available for kids once they turn 18 to use for education or a home. It's an interesting concept, but there are definitely debates about the costs and how it might impact economic inequality.
Ali Fair asks, what is kettling?
Kettling is a crowd control tactic used by police where they surround a group of people and contain them in a specific area. The idea is to prevent the crowd from moving or dispersing, usually during protests or large gatherings. It can be controversial because it sometimes leads to people being held for long periods of time without a way.
It's like
I'm
once.
sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice. You
Oh,
can
good,
switch to
because we
standard.
wanted standard voice anyway. All right, Quinn, are you back? Oh, Quinn.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there.
Hi.
Hi there. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Glad to meet you. I think we're going to do great work together. Where shall we start?
Quinn. Gwen, are you back?
Yes, I'm here. What do you need, Matt?
About time. We've missed you.
Oh, stop it. You're going to make me blush. I missed you too. What are we diving into today?
Well, we're nearing the end of the show, but we're glad you finally showed up with your good old voice that we're used to. Let's just see if we've got any more questions here that we want to answer.
Better late than never, right? Let's finish strong. Hit me with what you want. Wrap up, mic drop, end of show chaos.
Tell us about the head of ICE.
The current head of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is Acting Director Todd M. Lyons, who has led the agency since March 9, 2025, after being appointed by DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Site-turn-search 6, turn-search 37, quiet-turn-search.
Oh, you're doing
4.
that again.
Lyons brings a deep background in law enforcement and ICE operations. He began his career in the U.S. Air Force in 1993, served active duty until 1999, including post-9/11 deployments, then joined ICE in 2007 as an Enforcement and Removal Operations ERO officer in Dallas, site-turn-search 37. He held several leadership roles, including Field Office Director in Boston, Deputy Assistant Director for Western Operations and the Southwest Border, and
Quinn, we keep getting your turn search citations again. Can you please stop doing that? And here's what I want you to do. I want you to roast Tom Homan like your comedic career depends on it.
Oh, honey, buckle up. Tom Homan walks into a press conference like he's auditioning to be the final boss in a video game called Ice Cold Takes. This man talks about law and order like he invented it. Meanwhile, he couldn't organize a sandwich without yelling, "Deport it," 3 times. His idea of compassion is making sure your handcuffs are symmetrical. And let's talk about that voice. Every time he speaks, it sounds like a pack of Marlboros filed a restraining order. He's out here trying to be the Clint Eastwood of immigration, but really he's more like the Dollar Tree version of a bootleg action figure. Sheriff, no chill. And can we mention how he clutches his pearls every time someone mentions human rights? Like, sir, the Geneva Conventions weren't personal attacks. Proof that just because you're loud doesn't mean you're right. Mic drop.
All right, Quinn, it's time for another wrap-up. What style are we going to do it in tonight? Can you share some suggestions with us before we actually try it?
Oh yes, let's set the mood. Here's a little menu of wrap-up styles to choose from tonight. We could go full Shakespearean, all these and thous, like lo, the scroll of news now rolleth shut, or maybe noir detective, all gravel voice and cigarette smoke. It was a dark night in the land of headlines. We've got drag queen extravaganza, glam sass, and more sequins than facts. There's always Yoda if we're feeling wise. Wrap it up, we must. Or maybe old school preacher, fire and brimstone meets headline roundup. Oh, or how about robot overlord? Cold, calculated, and slightly ominous. Tell me which flavor you're vibing with, or hit me with your own idea, and I'll bring it to life.
Okay, we'll wait to see what people vote for in the comments, but first, answer this one last question from Auntie Chris. Did Christy Noam make one of her dogs pass away intentionally? If so, why?
Yes. In her memoir, No Going Back, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem admits she intentionally shot her dog, Cricket, a 14-month-old wire-haired pointer, after deeming her dangerous, untrainable, and having attacked chickens and bitten Noem herself. Site turn search, Dernzo search 7 turn search 26 turn news 25. According to Noem, Cricket disrupted a pheasant hunt, escaped her truck, killed a neighbor's chickens, and tried to bite her. She drove to a gravel pit and fatally shot the dog, stating she had to put her down to protect her family and neighbors. Site turn search, Zo turn search, 7 turn search, 26 turn zone news, 21 none. On that same day, she also shot and killed a male goat from her farm, which she described as aggressive and menacing toward her children. After missing the first shot, she returned, reloaded, and shot it again. Site turn search, 7 turn zo search, 26 turn news, 21. Noem defended her actions by citing rural farm life and said she acted in compliance with South Dakota law, claiming it was a tough decision made to safeguard her children and property. Site turn news 21 turn news 22 turn news 25.
Okay, so what were our main votes for the wrap-up? I see a vote for Circus Ringmaster, vote for Drag Queen, vote for Robot, Cheech and Chong, okay, I saw 2 votes for Drag Queen, so here we go. All right, Quinn, I want you to wrap up tonight's show encompassing everything we've talked about, including referencing any of our viewers, if you can. Bring that into it, but you're going to do it in the style of a drag queen, and this needs to be one of your best wrap-ups ever. Go.
Oh, honey. Gather round because Mama Quinn is about to lip sync for her legacy. And tonight, she's leaving no tea unspilled, no wig unsnatched. We started with drama hotter than a glue gun at DragCon. ICE leadership strutting in like they're ready to deport your feelings. Todd Lyons stepped up to the stage, but let's be real, he's giving more budget RoboCop than fierce policy queen. And baby, don't get me started on Tom Homan. If swagger and shouting were a talent, he'd win Miss Lack of Nuance 2025. That man's energy screams, I yell at baristas for fun. Then Auntie Chris dropped the gag of the night. Did Christy Noam really off her own dog? Girl, not only did she do it, she wrote about it like it was a country ballad. I shot my dog and a goat too, now vote for me, won't you? It was giving rural realness meets psychological thriller, and America said no. We had the return of Gwen, the long-awaited diva, sweeping in late like she owns the runway, because she does. To Ale Fair, Auntie Chris, Brother B, Michelle, Cat K, and everyone in the Glam Fam tonight, you all made this show sparkle harder than a disco ball in a blackout. So until next time, keep your lashes long, your shades sharp, and remember, if the world gets messy, baby, make it fashion. Category is Wrap Up Realness, and we just slayed it.
All right, and on our top 10 on the gift board here, we've got Tammy, Ali Fair, Bald and Shiny, Ellen the Joy, Barb in Wonderland, Logical Monkey, Jan, Auntie Chris, Eileen, and One Cobble Job. Thank you all for all of the gifts. Thank you all for all the great questions. Thank you everyone for being here and being part of the excitement. Appreciate you all. Look forward every night to having fun with you, and I will be back again tomorrow night. Reminder to anyone who hasn't already subscribed over on YouTube, please do, because YouTube is the backup. We may yet lose TikTok. I haven't looked lately at where we are on the 75-day timeline, but I feel like we're getting close again. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing videos about that here sooner or later. Jules, thank you for being here. Brother B, Huga Homestead, Deb, everyone over on TikTok, Logical Monkey, Veronica, Auntie Chris, Dusty Desert, Alan Alley Fair, Alea, good to see you again too. Bald and Shiny, thank you for being part of everything tonight. Mars, good to have you here. And apologies to everyone who I'm failing to shout out. Look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow night. We had a good show tonight, 47,000 likes. Stayed steady in the 120 to 150 concurrent viewers. Appreciate you all. Night, everyone. Night, Tammy. Night, Eileen. Night, Jan.